women in the United States find it very sexy.
Mm.
So doesn't mean that it's different. It does well.
I feel that.
Being different does not mean something bad.
Mhm.
It's just being something beautiful.
Mhm.
So we need to embrace that factuality.
I felt that your accent is from United States.
I
Because I have a friend from Britain, it is different.
the one I was just talking to is Irish,
Mm.
and he speaks Irish
Mm.
dialect and accent,
Mhm.
but we still communicate effectively, and we get to a point of understanding. So accent is not something of high value when it comes to emphasis in academic setting.
Mhm.
What has bigger value is being able to convey your messages effectively writing wise,
Mhm.
and be able to read effectively and to communicate effectively your message, because language is just like a tool. It's like a pair of shoes you wear. It's like a pair of glasses you have. It's like a key to turn on your car. Language is just a tool, and the more you sharpen your tool, the more you modify it in a way that is suitable to the context of your environment,
Yes.
the better your language as a tool becomes.
Mhm.
And we need to effectively understand that part. Would you please close the door, because
Yes.
just noise coming from outside. What we are doing right now, we're not taking out
Mhm.
class by any means. This is an introductory to the course of communication and IELTS reading and writing,
Mhm.
which are going to be our focus for this month.
Yes.
Reading and writing.
Mhm.
But we are going to talk,
Mhm.
speaking about reading and writing.
Mm, very good.
So one of the side effects of doing this training is to get positive speaking.
To break
And
the
of course,
ice.
since we are interchanging conversation, I assume that your listening is going to be a little bit better, since we are going to go over lots of topics that require critical listening. Critical listening is to listen effectively and come up with a result built on that interaction. An interesting element that we just started talking about is the concept of accent, and it's fairly misunderstood in Iraq and Middle East in general that accent is a bad thing, or accent is a good thing, or you need to twitch or move your mouth in a very distinct and different way in order to produce that sound. And that just happens because our mouth muscles get used to the sound production of the first language, which is Arabic. So they take the shape and build muscles behavior on that. So the brain adapts to the muscles movement, and the muscle movements adapt to the sound production. So when an intruder comes in, an outsider sound like be and pe, and other sounds like schwa, or ah, these kind of sounds are outsider to the anatomy of the mouth movement. And mouth movement is going to respond to this kind of new sound by alternating the positioning of mouth and tongue and teeth in order to produce that sound.
Yes.
So effectively, while starting this kind of training, you'll have some sort of disorganized mouth movements, and that is observable by people. So they might give you feedback that, why do you move your mouth this way or that way? Well, I'm just going through the process of behavior adjustment to help my mouth get ready to speak English like as I speak Arabic. Assumingly that we speak English on equal level of speed to Arabic. When we speak English, we are not native speakers. So I want you not to feel frustrated that when you speak English, you're slower. Your English is not your operating system. It's the second operating system. And in order to boot that system, it takes a little bit of processing, and speed is not number one in that list. You need to choose words wisely and correctly and effectively within the context. And in order to do so, you need to slow down to give your brain enough time to retain, synthesize, and produce the sound effectively. Producing English is like producing Arabic, but it happens to be on a different mechanism. And this mechanism is built on coordination between the engine, which is your competence of language, and the vehicle, which is the performance. And by performance, we mean your mouth, your muscles, your body gestures, your eye contact, your all of that is going to be an ancillary, auxiliary, and additional to be an effective speaker.
Yes.
So this chemistry of elements will shape and reshape your behavior of conversation with us, conversation among people, and the highly effective way of delivering your speech is to think of English as just a tool, and it can be used in different contexts. English communication is like using any tool in the kitchen to open something that is not designed to be opened with. So when you said the word like outside your rack, you use the preposition outside, which is not the right tool to this meaning, but it effectively conveyed the meaning. I understood that, and once I am understood and be understood, we could have reached to a consensus or agreement on what we want to get to, which is a satisfactory performance in IELTS, reading, listening, speaking, and writing. Now, going back to this whole mess, getting a higher score in IELTS requires demanding tasks and lots of effort and perspiration to be on track of being a good performer. If you train yourself on IELTS, you definitely will improve your English. And if you work on your English improvement, you will definitely get higher results in IELTS.
That's right.
So there is an interchangeable benefit of whether you choose this track or that track. What we talked about the other day was you're planning to get both packages in order to be able to communicate effectively and to get higher score in IELTS, which is totally understood and acceptable by my side. At this point, do you have any inquiries, any thoughts, any ideas you want to share with me before we move to the next step?
No. You are right in every single word you have said, and I agree with you.
Okay. Sounds good.
But I have a question.
When you say I don't have questions, that's worrying to me.
No.
I want you to ask as many questions as possible because this conversation and this training is built on the principle of having elongated discussions about any field that we want to discuss. The way we do things between me and you is built on the chemistry of behavior of conversation.
Yes.
And just like throwing a stone in the lake and seeing what will happen and type notes here. So building on, for example, what we have talked about so far, I've determined.
Yes, not determined.
Determined.
Yes.
That we have relatively weak word selection. So maybe this can be bridged by doing extensive work on practice of vocabulary. We have word pronunciation, basic pronouns use, stress, word change, tense use, which is time, because we have dimensions of time in English, and use of a and the like a book or and flow of speech. And all of these are very highly important items that are tested and observed by IELTS examiners when they talk to you. So if they see any kind of behavior that indicates that you have weaknesses in these elements, they will mark you down in the category of grammatical range and accuracy. They assume that you get 9 out of 9 in IELTS grammatical range and accuracy, but they mark you down once they see something that counters what they perceive or see. You said that you have
a question. Yeah. Maybe it is too early to ask about your analysis or diagnosis of my results in IELTS exam I have shared with you. But where you can find my weak points in this result?
Well, it's really early to determine that because IELTS is not 100% accurate test. We should take it with a grain of salt. To take something with a grain of salt is to put a question mark on the observation that you have. Like if I tell this is a door, I say, well, let's determine if it's a door, building on the criteria that we have here or standards to diagnose whether that's a door or a tank or a house. So there are criteria. So there are multiple variables that we need to have a look, and that will manifest by our performance and behavior in the training. Now, when we say training is very loose term. يعني مصطلح راقي. It does not mean that we are taking academic training. I usually go organically with people and see where their weaknesses are, and then determine the solutions. When you got listening 5 and reading 4.5 and writing 5.5, there are so many variables that just have helped you to get these scores. So these scores are the result of something that I will determine by the course of training. And they are not the cause here. To get a low score in IELTS is just a result of either lack of training or lack of training for test, or misunderstanding the concept of test, or misunderstanding or not understanding the mechanism of test, or not having enough training on test.
There is something wrong in the time management, which I faced in the reading.
I'll take that with a grain of salt, because time management is determined very effectively for this kind of test to determine the fast readers from the slow readers. So people get 8.5 in reading and you get 5.5 in reading does not mean that there is time problem here. It just means that there are people who have trained enough to be fast readers, to synthesize big chunks of paragraphs in short amount of time, while there are other readers who have average half a page reading per month.
Yes. I remember the reading test for 2 times. I had to read very fast, rapidly, looking for the keywords. Remember it?
Do you answer the questions? Do you read the questions first and then go to scout for reading, or you finish reading and go to questions?
Yes, I finish reading. I'm reading the passage at first and try to remember every word, special words, keywords.
How about if I tell you this, that the test makers create as many distractions in the passage, like they create big words in order to distract you from finding the point that you're looking for. And they alter the meaning.
Yes, synonyms. They use
synonyms.
Yes.
And these are distraction to determine the high efficient readers from the regular readers to weak readers. So just because you got 5.5 in reading does not mean that there's a problem in the test, but there is lack of training by your side. On average, how many pages do you read per month?
I'm not reading these days a hard book, but I'm reading in my iPad, which is not different. But
it is different, but okay.
Okay, but I'm reading too much.
When you say too much, how do you quantify that into mathematical number?
Yes, maybe you can say that I'm reading 2 to 3 hours per day.
Okay.
In many aspects, political, literature, religion, stories, news, anything.
Okay. Well, that's comforting because that's going to shorten the amount of time we.
In addition, Mr. Walid, I'm turning on my TV channels on CNN and BBC and also France 24
Mm-hmm.
all every day to listening to the new words that using in the news, in titles, in the main titles and subtitles, looking for these.
Well, that's listening for general purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and getting IELTS test is listening for specific details. So
Yes.
naturally speaking, when we listen to news, we're just not 100% focused on what we're listening. We're just hearing news. We're not listening
Yes.
to news. If you're watching CNN, you're just pretty much talking about a political context or news that are abnormal.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to talking about IELTS, we need to understand that IELTS is a test that tests your proficiency in study in a university. It just determines whether you are able and eligible
Mm-hmm.
to study at an English-speaking university or not.
Mm-hmm.
And we need a separate set of parameters
Mm-hmm.
to determine that, and a full package of things to be trained on to get to that level of proficiency. So I would say that the margin of benefit from watching CNN and whatever you're doing there is not going to exceed 20% of your advantage in IELTS. Why? We're just not choosing the right medicine to treat the disease. First of all, we need to do an assessment and diagnosis of the disease that we have here, which is an example, and then prescribe the medicine accordingly. So sometimes you take you take Panadol to treat, for example, ulcer, and that is not going to give us a productive result.
Useless.
Even if you take it in the timely manner and within the right prescription, within the right dosage, that is not going to get us any result. So listening to CNN and going expecting that you get a higher score on listening in IELTS is just taking Panadol to treat ulcer.
But Mr. Wali, this result of IELTS, I got it without any preparation. I don't know what is the meaning of IELTS exam. I thought I have to take an IELTS exam. I'm just booked the exam online and choose the British Council at Muscat. Took my ticket, fly to Muscat, go to the center of exam, and this is the result. Without any preparation, without reading any textbook, without getting any experiment on this.
This is very good result, by the way. It is just was taken without any preparation. So if you take preparation, I would say you may get on average between 6.5 to 7.5.
Very good. This is optimistic to me.
And you can take that probably within the upcoming 2 months of training. We just need to build a plan to have a vision of where we want to be.
Yes.
We want to get 7.5 in each one of the 4 skills that you're tested on. And we will build on this 7.5 model, the kind of materials that we use. But sometimes I become ambitious and shoot for higher score because the benefit of IELTS underweighs the benefit of making you a better English speaker. I have preference to work on your English skills to become effective speaker rather than being an IELTS. And IELTS is just an offshoot. Offshoot means a result of becoming a good English speaker. Um, when I got IELTS, I took IELTS for the first time, and I got 6.5.
And what year?
Yeah, I think 3 years ago.
Okay.
Or 2 years ago. 2 years and a half.
Here in Iraq?
Here in Iraq,
Okay.
and I had no idea what IELTS was. I just was confident because of my English and hoopla that I'm gonna go in and take very high score. The reason and British Council paid for my IELTS. Why? Because they wanted me to be an examiner, and they wanted me to get 9. To be honest, I didn't want that job at that time. Because I had another job, and because I was careless. So I went there and I took the test. They paid the money, and they were shocked that I got 6.5. So I had to tell them that.
I'm shocked to hear that.
No, it's just a test. Sometimes it gives you the right score. Sometimes it does not.
Do you think the results depend on the mood of the examiner? I think that's
No. Based on what I see here, that he gave you very high score in speaking. Speaking accuracy and validity is 85% more than all of the other tests.
Which is more critical?
No, like when we have a patient and we have 4 tests.
Yes.
One of the tests will give us 85% accurate results of the disease. That's the speaking.
Yes.
All the other 3 tests will give us less than 65%.
We call it the test of choice. You know?
I have no idea what that means.
This is in pharmacy.
In pharmacy,
yes.
If we talk about listening, reading, and writing, writing gives us approximate 65% of the real level of the person. And it comes second after speaking. Reading and listening are cognitive. I have no idea what comes inside your mind. So whatever test I design, it's going to be built on the echo of your behavior, building on what you will see or read.
Of course.
So when you do reading test, you answer questions. The questions are the echo of your response, of your comprehension.
So the speaking is the high level, or
highest
level, or the most important test for assessment.
So the time of the test does not determine the efficiency of the test. For speaking, you take 10 minutes to 15 minutes with the examiner of direct conversation, not his part, your part.
Yes.
But for reading and listening and writing, you take 1 hour.
Yes.
But speaking for 10 hours determines the real level of the person 85% more than the 3 tests. Why? Because it's synchronous, direct, clear, combines all of the human skills to deliver the message. And there are other criteria, of course, but this is in general why we prefer speaking test more than other tests. That's partially also for the purpose of psychological assessment, because I don't know the behavior of the person under pressure when he's doing writing, but I can see that when he's speaking. I don't know if the person has psychological impact factors that lower his performance in the test in listening and reading, or maybe he's distracted because of a problem that he had before he come to the test, or because of the room temperature, or because he's wearing tight shoes. These are variables that we cannot control. That's why in statistics we call them uncontrolled variables, and they to some extent influence the behavior and performance of the speakers within the test domain. The sequence of tests is really critical as well, because the performance of the person in the last hour of the test is not the same as the performance of the person in the first hour of the test. So the validity of the first part of the test is higher than the validity of the last hour of the test. That's why we give the writing test at the end, because the performance is going to be more focused on doing mechanical work that requires less mental thinking than doing the first part of the test, which is listening, that requires higher level of critical thinking. So the sequence of the test and the test design and the test anatomy all have been thought very carefully. So to say, Mr. Osama, that the test does not or had some weakness is taken with a grain of salt. Especially if we think of the time you took the test and lack of preparation, lack of understanding of the design of the test. So you just repeated my terrible experience of going to the test without preparation, which is very normal. I took TOEFL 12 times.
Whoa.
And I took them in the shorter...
It's required for academic study.
Yeah, I had to get very high score to get into the master program in USA.
Yes.
And because we didn't have enough time, I had to take the test in multiple locations.
But also there is an IELTS for academic.
There is an IELTS for academic purposes and there's IELTS for general purposes. Yes. The difference is that the kind of questions you get in writing in IELTS for general purposes are related to life. But that ones you get for academic purposes are academically oriented.
Yeah.
In general, they don't matter because it's all about your writing style. So whether you talk about, for example, education in Iraq for academic purposes, or you talk about the danger of smoking, they are all determined by the efficiency of your writing.
Yes.
So the efficiency of your writing is detrimental factor whether you are getting higher score in IELTS or not. So we do not focus on the theme of the test, but we focus on the content, framework, and design and anatomy, and your philosophy of writing and how much you read, because writing efficiency is a result of reading efficiency.
You're focusing on the words creative and the chain of thoughts?
These are hypothetically emphasized, but when it comes to real practice, I wouldn't put that much emphasis. People say them for commercial purposes, that they say we will teach you academic writing and creative writing, but honestly, that doesn't matter. It's all about how much you read and how much you write.
Yes.
And there's so much emphasis on reading. Reading changes the behavior of the brain in so many different ways that cannot be imagined. I think that the reading skill is the most important out of all of them. And the more reflective reader you become, the better user of words and speaking and writing you are. So getting very low score in writing is because you're a bad reader. Not you, but in general. Because the person is a bad reader, not because he's a bad writer. So no matter how much training he gets in writing, if he doesn't do reading, he's not going to end up where he visualizes himself to be. That's in a nutshell. باختصار. In a nutshell.
Nutshell.
Not على net مع السيارة. Nutshell. قشرة. Nutshell. In a nutshell. That's in a nutshell. باختصار. What happens? Going back to square number 1.
Yes.
We were talking about accents. So, trying to understand the philosophy of accents is something that is left to specialists and professors and fields. I think what we need to do is just be within the country of language. And once you are in the country of language, you are pronouncing words according to the general norm, you're safe. So let's imagine that you're traveling to Europe. Once you are in Europe, you're okay. But if you're in Iraq, having a vision to travel to Europe and you're not in Europe, that's a different case. So when we focus on accents only when we get to a satisfactory level of pronunciation. And that happens by seeing the high frequency words in English, practicing all of them. The way the word is pronounced independently is different from the pronunciation of the word within the sentence. So as an example here, we need to do something called accent reduction. By accent reduction, we reduce the first language accent and increase the second language accent or correct pronunciation. I try as much as possible avoid the word accent because it's been commercialized and emphasized commercially, but the value of accent is really nothing, or almost nothing, when it comes to delivering meaning. You can find people with terrible accents have the best speeches in the world, and you can see an example of that when the Chinese foreign minister responded back to Dick Cheney in one of the conferences. His Chinese was fatally killing his English, but the way he chose words, he silenced Dick Cheney at that time. You can go, remind me, I can send you the link to that conversation that he had in one of the conferences and see how effective speaker he was. Nobody cared about the accent. People care about the delivery of meanings. So just being in Iraq, hearing that he speaks with a British accent or American accent, there are hundreds of thousands of accents of English in the world. Like let's think of India. India is a continent, and people in India speak English as their first and second language. English is spoken by 67 countries in the world as the first language. Out of 196 countries in the world, 67 countries in the world speak English as their first language. So out of these countries, do they speak American or British? No. They speak English with their own accent. Accent is a beautiful thing.
I'm suffering from India when they are speaking English on phone or in conference that I meet with them.
Well,
it's a broken English.
I think it is better to try to get to understand the way they talk. I love Indian accent because I had so much time enjoying conversation with them.
Sometimes they are swallowing some words, some letters. So you have to focus on the tongue.
Well, the word swallowing does not have a language categorization. It has pharmaceutical categorization. So using this word in language is just not going to be high valid, honestly. The categorization of swallowing is related to pharmaceutical companies of building a kind of medicine that cannot be digested by children, or endangered children to be at risk of suffocation or asphyxia or getting side effects because of the overdose. But talking about accents and swallowing in language is just going to be risky at your level right now. And I highly recommend you leave that to specialists to deal with. And leave your and stay in your field of I'm sorry, I'm just joking. But the idea of swallowing is really highly stressed out in Iraq. But lots of people do not have clear vision of what swallowing is in dialects or in accents, and that's okay. People are not specialists in field of language, so they just do organic observation of what people say, and anything that goes against the norms of society or societal norms, it will be overlooked or underlooked by people. Walk in any one of the streets in Baghdad and try to chat English with your friends. People will look you differently from talking in Southern accent or Mosuli accent or Nineveh accent. It is just going to be, it happens to be that way because we used to be a closed society. We didn't have that many foreigners and tourists visiting us. So we we developed this kind of enigmatic vision of accent and the mystery of accents and preference of British accent, which is really misleading. To speak with British accent does not necessarily mean that you have a higher level of efficiency than to speak with American accent. There's Canadian accent, Irish accent, New Zealand accent, and all of them are equal 100%. There is no preference or better value of one accent over the other. If we talk about London accent or British accent, it is only spoken by 3% of people in London.
Whoa.
So if we try to say that British accent is better than English accent, we're just comparing a pill of Panadol to Samara factory of medicine. It's really incomparable. We cannot generalize British accents because one of the criteria to determine this accent has more popularity than the other accent is by the number of people who speak it. Now, if we talk about the number of people who speak British accent in London or the pure English, it is only spoken by 3% of people in London.
I have a trial in the past to read a play of Shakespeare. It was Scotch from Scotland.
No,
but it was very difficult. I felt that there's not English.
It's not English 100% that you regularly see in nose or in spoken English nowadays, because English has evolved over the past 300 years. English was a mix of French, German, Latin, Greek, and Roman.
Really?
And the kind of English that was used 300 years ago is completely different from the English that we use now. So if we trace the history of English language, we cannot say that English of Shakespeare is difficult. It is just was used at that time by those people, and it's been transferred historically to you to have a look at it, but not necessarily to consider it as the standard English. In nowadays, standard English, if we agree on the term standard, is the number of words that are spoken in the world by a huge number of people and got understood by each other. And that is a frequency of 1,000 to 3,000 words that constitutes 85% of the spoken English and written English worldwide.
Yes.
Spectrum of 3,000 words. If you check the words that Shakespeare used, well, first of all, he's a writer. He was writing to people in London. He was writing in the 1700s, which was like how many years? 500, 600 years from now?
Yes.
That's a long time ago. So saying that British English is difficult is like saying معلقات امرؤ القيس is difficult to be read nowadays.
Of course.
So English grows, and people who speak English nowadays may not understand what Shakespeare was speaking at that time. So it's not generalizable, honestly, Isama. But that's another topic. Our purpose of meeting today was just to get to know each other and to meet you and see you in person and have a cup of coffee and get to know and chat. Most of our conversation is going to take place online in the evenings, and we will plan 2 or 3 days ahead of the meeting time to have that meeting. And I honestly wanted to get an impression of your English by asking you lots of questions and bombarding you with different types of questions related to your family. Now let's move to your work. For your work, what kind of work do you perform on a daily basis during the week?
Yes. In my office or in the routine daily.
The daily routine work.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase my question. Tell me about your daily routine yesterday, from the point you woke up to the point that you went to sleep.
Yes. Yesterday or just like every day.
No. Tell me about yesterday.
Yesterday.
Because I want to test your use of fast.
Yes, of course. Yesterday I wake up at 8:30 early morning. Took my breakfast and going to my office.
Some people take their breast before they take breakfast, so it's okay.
Okay. I went to my office and start my business day just like every
Where's your office?
My office in Park Al Sadoun.
Is in Park Al Sadoun.
Yes, in Park Al Sadoun. It is a small company of pharmaceutical importing. I'm starting there to checking my emails and try to reply or answer my agents outside Iraq. Also, I'm doing the paperwork that I have to do because I have to make letters to the MOH. I have to check the registration dossiers of the company and its products. I have to register at MOH. Also, I'm checking the problems that I'm facing in this registration process.
What kind of problem?
Yes. You know, the dossier of registration company, pharmaceutical company, and its product in Iraq have to include many documents like the certificate of incorporation of the company at the country of origin, the manufacturing license, the GMP document, which is the good manufacturing practice, the letter of authorization. Sometimes there is lacking or missing of one or more of these documents. So I have to ask the company to support me with these missing documents. Sometimes these documents are available in dossier, but they are not legally legalized from the Iraqi embassy at the country of origin. Maybe these documents lacking some sentence talking about the marketing of the product at the country of origin, which MOH in Iraq, Ministry of Health, looking for that.
Is looking for that.
Yes, looking for that. Need the product, pharmaceutical product, at first to be marketed at the country of origin before it's importing for the Iraq or to Iraq. So also I have to share my thoughts with our regional office at Dubai with my partner Dr. Ahmed over there. Also, I have to solve the problems of the delivery guys, the driver of taxis that taking the products and marketing or deliver the products for the pharmacies, for the warehouses in Baghdad. Also solving the problems or hearing, listening to the problems, small problems. Sometimes they are not problems, but they are obstacles. Yes, obstacles in the daily work. These are my activities in the office. After I finished or finalized my business hours at 3 o'clock afternoon, I'm going to my house to have a lunch with my family, and after that we'll see what we have to do. Sometimes going to the mall, sometimes taking my children to the park, or sometimes I have to go to see my mother. Sometimes I have to stay in house for making some phone call or chatting on WhatsApp with the for business or for just for make a conversation with my friends. Sometimes watching TV, movie or some series with my family, and this is the routine daily
daily routine.
Yeah, daily routine activities for me.
Okay.
Yes.
Now my next question is related to your vision of where you want to be in English in terms of proficiency. How many months are you giving yourself, and when do you tentatively plan to travel?
To travel, you mean for immigration?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I need to set my plan accordingly.
Yeah, I know. I can regard myself as an optimistic person. So give me 2 months with you. I will be, inshallah, very good in English.
Well, that depends on the number of contact hours that we have.
Yes.
I'm setting 40 hours of contacts here, and we cannot do 40 hours in 2 months.
Okay.
But well, first because I have other obligations
Yes.
and my work, and I'm shooting for 4 hours per week.
Okay.
So if we assume that the month has 4 weeks, that's 4 multiplied by 2. So 4 multiplied by 4.
So what is your plan for 3 months or more?
I am shooting for 4 months.
4 months.
Because I need, language retention takes amount of growth. Like when I bring a seed and I plant it in soil, I'm not expecting it to grow and give me fruit tomorrow, whatever kind of nutrition I provided. Even if I bring all the multivitamins in all the pharmacies in the world, it's not going to help.
Yes.
Because it takes time to retain growth. And that takes time. So the minimum amount of time that we can determine a learner can get from one level to another.
I don't mind, by the way. Let's for a month.
Let's say 6 months to 1 year and 2 months. But for your case, you're not a beginner, and you're definitely not an upper beginner. You're definitely not an intermediate level. You're upper intermediate to advanced level. So that bridge between upper intermediate to advanced level takes around 4 months to 6 months, depending on so many variables, including time of meeting, time of contact, time of exposure, kind of materials for training, availability, number of contact hours. So you need to at least speak for between 400 to 600 hours.
Divided on the 4 months or per month?
For the 6 months to 1 year and a half, 1 year and 2 months, to become highly influential English speaker. But we're not going for that part because that takes lots of effort and gigantic amount of available sources. What we need to do is just 50% focus on your speaking skills and 50% focus on your writing, and build it to a point where you register for IELTS tests and you take the course and you get a score. If you get a score that is less than what we expect, we run the results and see where your weaknesses are, and then we build on focusing on these skills and collaboratively work together. I'm only guiding you like 10 to 15 to 20% maximum. All of the effort is done by you because I'm not your mouth and I'm not your brain.
Yes.
And whatever kind of training and exposure you have, it should be to your brain, not to my brain. I'm just trying to select from the millions of sources out there, some good valid sources to you. So imagine I'm in a big pharmaceutical company where they have all the medicines of the world, and I just need to select 2 to 3 times for your case.
You're right.
And that does not happen, quickly. So 2 months is just.
Put the plan that you feel that's suitable for me, and I agree with you.
Okay. Also, I need full cooperation because usually, based on my experience with learners, their motivation drops down after 2 months. So we need to make. Is that my phone?
No, I think it's mine.
We're almost done. After 2 months, people tend to be less cooperative because of their commitments, because of the cumulative commitments and the burden that they have on their shoulders. So once we get to a level of satisfactory proficiency in English, we'll just try to alter or change some aspects, like maintaining regular contacts with each other here, maintaining online fixed time for meeting, so that your brain becomes more responsive to these stimuli. I'm done. If you have any